Hello and welcome to our second masterclass on Luke 13. Last time I asked you to reflect on someone you know who has suffered and has had others point to them and say, your suffering is caused because of your sin. So I want you to hold those people in your heart today, and not only them, but the people who love them and live alongside them and hear these accusations launched against them. We're told just a chapter earlier, under these circumstances, after so many thousands of the multitude had gathered together that they were stepping on one another. So one senses that there are huge crowds gathered around him. Now, I want to point out something that's obvious once you realize it about storytelling. As you're preparing a story, know that your hearers are going to hear it from the beginning to its end. Right? But that doesn't mean that you, as a storyteller, prepare it always thinking of things as they appear in the text and then responses to that. Sometimes, and I think this would be an example of that, the response that's formulated might tell us something about the tone in which earlier comments were made. In every translation I consulted except for the NRSV, what Jesus said is prefaced by, and he answered them, not he asked them. His questions are raised by suspicions about what they're thinking based on what they had said. And my sense is that Jesus is bewildered or frustrated that they've implied that somehow those who suffer deserve it. And so Jesus is speaking to those who hold this view, who see God as punitively acting against these Galileans. But there are some Galileans, perhaps some who loved those who died, on the edges listening. And I think that is often the case in our congregation. You may have a large pool of people who think people get what they deserve. And there'll be some people in your congregation who are getting it and are overhearing people saying they must have deserved it. And there will be other people who love those people who are suffering and will also overhear the others. Jesus, it seems to me, in this text, this passage, is speaking to those raising accusations. So I've enclosed below an attachment that shows you some of the patterns of the question that Jesus revisits, cycles through twice. So you can see that there's a lot of repetition in this, but there's variation in the repetition, which makes it both easier and more challenging if you look ahead towards next week. So I'm recalling people who I have heard accused of being sinners based on their suffering. I'm thinking about the people who are overhearing them, but I'm assuming that the people who hold the view that those who suffer deserved it are the ones I'm directly addressing. At that very time, there were some present who told Jesus about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. Jesus asked them, do you think that these Galileans, because they suffered in this way, are worse sinners than all other Galileans? No, I tell you. But unless you repent, you'll perish as they did. So I want to capture some of the horror of what had happened. People being attacked in the very act of worship, it seems. How painfully that is. Even if I think that they're raising this out of, oh, look at this, Jesus, this is interesting, or those people must have deserved it, right, Jesus? Or maybe they're just sharing news. I want the pain of what Pilate perpetrated against those Galileans to come across. And yet, in Jesus' response, I want people to sense that there are some people who are buying into the belief that these people deserve.